Want to learn the season's trendiest designs, like Pinkoween ghosts, so that you can create beautiful pumpkins without all the mess of carving. Let's paint our way into a peaceful and creative fall.
First step is you're going to want to clean your pumpkin with a damp cloth to get rid of all the dirt. Now for the fun part, painting our pumpkin. I'm using a flat brush here with some pastel pink acrylic paint. Now you can also use craft paint and it should work just fine. If you want the exact paint mix I used, I'll leave it in the description below. I found that 2 coats worked best for solid coverage. So I basically painted the first layer, let it completely dry, and then went in with a second coat. I actually used a hairdryer to speed up drying time so I can get to my second coat faster. Another tip here is if you want your entire pumpkin to be painted, I would paint the top part of the pumpkin first, wait for that to dry, and then I would tip the pumpkin over, paint the bottom side of the pumpkin, wait for that to dry, and then I would repeat my second coat with that same method. Now, a tip for you is to make sure you place your pumpkin on wax or parchment paper while painting. This prevents the paint from sticking to the surface and peeling off. Trust me, I learned the hard way when I placed my pumpkin on a regular piece of paper and my paint peeled right off. Some people also, I heard, like to prime the pumpkin with a coat of sealer first to avoid this, but I found that the parchment paper method pretty much solved my issue. All right, now it's time to paint some cute little ghosts to give our pumpkin that Pinkoween vibe. So to make these ghosts as easy as pumpkin pie to paint, I used my round brush. Now you want to start by painting 3 small strokes at the bottom of the ghost, and then you just want to simply join the outer strokes with an upside down U shape. Now after that, just fill in your ghost with white paint. You want to repeat this across the entire pumpkin. Now if you feel your first coat doesn't pop, let it air dry and add a second layer of white. But you don't want to be stressed about making every ghost the same size or facing the same direction. Just have fun here and let your ghosts float wherever they want and however they want. Now if you're loving these little ghosts, check out my other ghost painting tutorial in the card above. Before we move on to the next step, here's a fun pumpkin trivia for you. Did you know that pumpkins are considered a variety of fruit? I had no idea until today. But hey, I'm not complaining. It's definitely one of the yummiest ways to get my daily dose of fruit. Now for the final touch on our ghost pumpkin, we're going to be adding simple black ovals for their eyes. I used a Posca black paint marker here because I find it makes it easier for me to make those smaller details, but don't feel like you need to run out to the store to buy one if you don't already have it. Just use your smallest detailing brush with some thin down black paint and you'll be good to go. Now, as an optional step, you can add some cute facial expressions to your ghosts. I did this for half of my pumpkin. Let me know in the comments below which style you prefer, ghosts with just eyes or ghosts with fun little expressions. The next pumpkin we're painting is a trendy and super easy spooky drippy skull design. To start, grab a Sharpie marker and roughly outline the eyes and the nose of your skull. Then draw some drip marks below the nose. These drips will guide us where we start painting, and they'll also show where we want to leave that natural orange of the pumpkin. It's a great way to get that spooky, drippy look while keeping things simple. For this skull design, I'm using a really pale pink paint. It kind of looks white on camera, but in person, it's more of a soft pink tone. Now, since this is a big pumpkin, I used a large painter brush to cover the big areas quickly. Then I switched over to a smaller round brush and a flat brush to carefully paint around the borders of the eyes, nose, and those drip marks. I then made sure I painted this pale pink all the way around the pumpkin, and I also found that 2 coats were needed to get rid of any streakiness and to really make the color pop. Once the paint is dry to the touch, it's time to outline the eyes, nose, and the drip marks with a black Posca paint marker. If you don't have a paint marker, don't worry. Just use your detailing brush with some thin down black paint. Now, a little tip here is thinning down your black paint with water, which will make it flow more like a pen from your brush, which helps get those smooth, flowy lines. Once you're happy with your outlines, you can even add some accent drip curves around the eyes and the drip marks to really make it look like those drips are moving down the pumpkin. As an alternative, you can also get creative with different colors to fill in your drippy skull. You could go bold with purple, for example, or even a beautiful turquoise blue, which would look amazing. Feel free to experiment with colors to give it your own unique twist. Before we move on to the next pumpkin design, here's another fun pumpkin fact, or should I say pumpkin pie fact. The largest pumpkin pie ever made was 20 feet across and weighed a whopping 3,600 pounds. Imagine how many people that could feed. Our next design is a trendy boho abstract landscape inspired by Pinterest, and it's been getting a lot of love lately. This design is super easy and satisfying to create, which is why I wanted to share it with you. And it can be painted on anything like canvas, fabric tote bags, phone cases, or even your walls. Now for this project, I use a vintage color palette of 5 muted colors. I'm going to include the exact paint recipes in the description below. But a good rule of thumb here is to add brown and white to any color to give it that muted antique look. You want to start by taking a medium-sized round brush and using pure white paint to roughly outline your first mountain range. Then paint in the sky, but you want to make sure you have enough room for a full circular sun that we're going to be painting in a later step. Or if you're feeling confident and your hand is not shaky like mine, you can move on to the next step without leaving it to dry. Just be careful not to mix the colors. Next, use a soft pink to paint in the second mountain range. A tip here is to vary the peaks and the valleys from the first range, making them look completely different in height and shape. The key to this design is variety. Now, once you're happy with the pink, you're going to move on to the burnt orange, the muted brown, and finally vintage blue at the bottom. I found it helpful to first sketch in the rough shape of each mountain range, then fill it in, and then adjust the shape to add more variety where needed. Now, once your mountain ranges are completely dry, it's time to add the tree line. I use a fine detailing brush and a darker version of my blue. Basically, I just mix in more brown to darken it. To paint the trees, I start with a vertical center line, and then I add branches on alternating sides of that center line, making the line shorter at the top and longer at the bottom to give that classic tree shape. Now, like the mountains, I like to vary the tree height for a more natural look. Before we move on, here's our last fun fact about pumpkins. The first jack-o'-lanterns weren't made from pumpkins. They were actually made from turnips. There's a spooky folktale behind this tradition, so if you love a good ghost story, it's worth reading up on. Now for the last step, we're going to paint in the setting sun. Start by tracing in a circle with a pencil, then grab your smallest brush and fill in the sun with your yellow paint. I like to outline the sun first personally and then fill it in, but feel free to do it your own way. And that's it. We just made 3 easy, trendy, and fun no-carve pumpkin designs on 3 different sized pumpkins. It's a stress-free, relaxing, and fun craft you can do solo or with friends and family for a cozy paint night. I set mine up on the porch with my cute scarecrow couple looking overhead, and I think they love them. What do you think? One last tip. If you're displaying your pumpkins outside, give them a coat of sealer to protect the paint from peeling. Thank you so much for watching. Sending you lots of peace, love, and color your way.